Welcome to M01 Rocketeers, the podcast by Maria01, the Nordics' leading startup community. Join us as we embark on an inspiring journey to explore the possible, the plausible, and the preferable futures, alongside the brightest minds of the Finnish startup scene.
Welcome to M01 Rocketeers. This is Camilla.
And this is Sarita.
From the Maria01 team. Joining us today are Lauri Paloheimo, co-founder and head of change at Pandatron, Petrie, CEO and co-founder at Kwizie.ai, and Jaakko Kaikuluoma, CEO and co-founder at Teamspective. Welcome. Would you like to share a few words about yourselves?
Sure. I might start. My name is Lauri, as was mentioned, and I'm the head of change at Pandatron. My background is first and foremost in coaching, especially the systemic coaching school of thought, and a little bit of agile enterprise coaching as well, and also philosophy actually as well, being more of a longer-term passion for mine. And what we do at Pandatron, we're basically creating an AI-based change agent to help with large-scale organizational change and transformation programs by combining conversational artificial intelligences and data analytics. As the old saying goes, the only change is the constant, and it seems to be an accelerating constant right now for companies worldwide. And so that's basically our business.
It's fascinating.
Thanks.
Hi, Jaakko Kaikuluoma from Teamspective. So Teamspective is a solution for organizational performance management. So in practice, we help develop better leadership. And we do this in 3 domains: in employee engagement, performance management for individuals and leaders, and then collaboration. And this is a kind of holistic approach to developing organizations and how people organize in an organization. So we have 2 unique insights. We see that the managers or leaders are pretty much underserved at the moment by other like employee engagement solutions. So HR runs surveys, but the managers and leaders, they get little or no support in developing themselves. And secondly, we see that AI is being underutilized. So it has massive capacity to help people understand data better, plan actions, and also take action. So that's what we are bringing to the markets.
Thank you.
And I'm Chris. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from here. I'm actually from New Zealand, land very far away. But I'm the CEO of Kwizie, yet another AI company. And we transform video from something that's essentially a passive experience into something that's active. So we do that through gamified quiz games. So you can input any video and then create this kind of gamified interactive experience that's multiplayer and the like. And so, we're really helping to boost that engagement and support learning and the like.
Thank you so much. And first, let's listen to a story from the future.
Dear citizens, the era of unprecedented productivity and seemingly endless opportunities for retraining is drawing to a close. As your Prime Minister, it is my solemn duty to confront the reality of our situation and confess a profound failure. The Human Capabilities Retraining Program has been declared a complete disaster. Despite years of effort, the Ministry of Education has been unable to produce the AI duplicates of our finest minds, professors of humanity, creativity, and co-creation, the very disciplines that are now vital to our survival. Now, with no other choice, we must return to the old-world methods of human-conducted education. This regression will set our retraining targets back by years, perhaps decades. In the early 2030s, we witnessed an extraordinary leap in productivity. But even this golden age had its roots in crisis. By the late 2020s, a catastrophic shortage of AI experts gripped the world, sparking a massive exodus of talent from Europe to the tech behemoths of America and China. Our continent faced an intellectual hemorrhage that threatened to drain the lifeblood of technological innovation. In response, the EU launched an audacious program to create AI twins, exact digital replicas of our top minds in artificial intelligence and cutting-edge research. These AI twins disseminated their knowledge at a speed unimaginable to the human brain, solving the shortage of AI talent once and for all. The results were spectacular. Europe ascended to an economic superpower. The new global hub of technology, AI-infused organizations streamlined operations so effectively that the demand for human labor plummeted. Unemployment surged, but we responded with progressive policies. The 4-day workweek, universal basic income, and the unprecedented robot tax, which allayed societal unrest. The productivity boom empowered corporations to take over much of the retraining process as academia lost ground. The baton of knowledge transfer passed into corporate hands. The early successes of our retraining program were rooted in technical knowledge, an area where AI twins excelled, but as artificial intelligence evolved towards general intelligence, penetrating deeper into every facet of life, the cracks began to show. A shift was needed, from technical prowess to human-centered capabilities. Collaboration, co-creation, empathy. These were the pillars of the new world we envisioned, but try as we might, our AI twins could not grasp the soul of these concepts and were thus unable to teach them to their human students. It is with great regret, dear citizens, that I stand before you today to admit what should have been obvious all along. Machines, no matter how advanced, will never replicate the depth of human emotion, creativity, and connection. And so I must deliver this hard truth. The most essential skills, the ones that make us truly human, cannot be taught by machines. We have arrived at a crossroads where technology meets its limits. As we step back into the old world of human mentorship, we must remind ourselves of one simple fact. Humanity was always meant to lead, not follow.
So, what were your initial thoughts after listening to the story?
I think there are a couple of claims over there that story was trying to transmit. Where what the first claim is that the human capabilities retraining program couldn't work, and the creativity, empathy, and co-creation cannot be replicated by AIs. So, which in a sense means that machines can't replicate some core human capabilities. And I think what was interesting to me with this whole point was that these are big words: creativity, empathy, co-creation, that were not really defined. So in a sense, there was this, I call it human mysticism, in a sense, that the story was presenting. It is a beautiful picture, sure, I get that, and there probably is something in us that, in a sense, makes us human. But to me, the question was, in a sense, that okay, so what are these things that we are talking about that makes us human, and why they cannot be replicated? So those would be my initial thoughts. And yeah, I warned you that I have a bad habit of answering questions with questions. So
yeah, I got stuck on pretty much the same points. In my experience, the large language models can actually help people empathize with others. They actually can do a better job than many humans can. And certainly I've received help in dealing with some situations just by asking it to impersonate someone who's going through this and kind of acting with me, acting out different scenarios. So definitely I can already now see that the empathy parts and collaboration and teamwork, they are areas where AI can actually develop and augment human capabilities.
So, what then would be the most uniquely human qualities that AI might not be able to replicate, in your opinion?
I think it's not related that much to a skill per se, but more related to attribute, which is desire, because based on what we understand, machines don't want anything, and therefore that means that they cannot make valuations. They can basically just spin language from different perspectives based on some statistical models ad infinitum, which then kind of leads to this point that where I'm at least where the moment of speaking, I'm skeptical of machines making decisions. I think they will be informing us to make decisions, but because they do not desire anything and they do not value anything, it's difficult for me to see that they would be having a consistent decision making. It's like to draw a comparison from neuroscience. There's this very interesting study called the split brain, where a person had his this one area in their brain that makes the more evaluating rational and the evaluating emotional parts of the brain speak to one another. So this part of their brain was split through some surgery, and what was important that after this happened, this person was completely unable to make any kind of decisions, even on how to tie their shoelaces. They could run different scenarios on how one could optimally tie their shoelaces, but they like really couldn't do it, and that was paramount to his whole life. So then, to me, because if I perceive machines being somewhat similar, that's because they don't want anything. They only have goals imposed by us and decided by us. So that's why the core human capability is valuation.
It's kind of an interesting thing to consider, what makes us unique, especially, when I remember like 10 years ago, a lot of people thought AI, the last kind of frontier would be creativity, yet a lot of people's introduction was creating images, just with a prompt and things like that, which kind of, I agree with this kind of idea, makes us question what is creativity, what is all these big words like empathy and things like that, what does that actually mean? But I think, two important points that I think, is first is that, often these LLMs and different models are trained on historical data, meaning that it's kind of taking like, a very kind of sophisticated average of the past. And so you kind of get this, my feeling when I talk to ChatGPT about anything that's, kind of a little bit, maybe emotional or things like that, it always gives me this kind of same bland response of, this kind of, maybe a little bit too optimistic. It struggles to be critical and all that kind of thing. So I think we'll always desire that human-to-human interaction for these kind of inherently human traits like empathy and things like that. But it definitely raises a lot of questions when you when you think about these things.
Yeah, and I want to challenge the idea that like AI will replace the need for human-to-human connection. I think that's one of the things that is extremely hard to replace. And just another thing that you also mentioned, Lauri, is decision-making and autonomy, which is one of the intrinsic motivators. So people need autonomy. We need to be able to make our own decisions, decide how we live, how we work, what we do. And then the other two are belonging and competence. And I think AI can actually help in all three. So AI can help us make decisions. I don't think many people will want to outsource their decisions, but AI can certainly help understand some pieces of information, puzzle them together, and it can help develop relationships between people. We do this already now by suggesting some very well thought out one-on-one discussion points using AI based on Teams data, for instance. And this really helps develop better relationships, so increases the belonging and the connection between people. And then competence, people can definitely develop their skills using AI-based training. And I think in a lot of cases, AI can have a lot more patience than a human teacher. I don't know if you have parents who struggle with technology, but I certainly don't have an infinite amount of energy to provide that guidance all over again. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's precisely because it does not want or wants you to succeed, because it is a simulation of certain kinds of capabilities that can feel real to us, and because they feel real, they shape us because we value them. So I kind of like to think that the question with technology is always about relationships, because in a very similar fashion as we have seen during the last 15 years, how our relationship to social media has changed very much on how the social reality operates. Or when we think about, for example, people using navigators, and we see that people actually have decreased spatial memory because they can outsource that function to the machines. So in a sense, it's not that I don't think the question is that does technology take something away. It's the question of how it augments something, and that's where we have also seen something similar with our company, where by serendipity, having the AI coach, for example, mid-managers going through their leadership transformation program, just by being coached, meaning that the AI asks these open-ended questions that gets them to reflect their decisions and gets them to question their beliefs, gets them to reflect on how their decisions relate to their value system. It is interesting that people start mimicking this way of leading others. It starts leaking into the organization on how people are leading to each other. And that's why I kind of see that instead of us being fundamentally creative creatures, we are also that, but I first and foremost think that we are mimicking creatures. And a very easy way to prove that is, for example, these studies where where, for example, children, instead of being raised by humans, they have been raised by wolves or humans, or chimpanzees or whatsoever, where instead of them growing to become human, they actually grow to become an animal because they are fundamentally shaped by those relationships. So then, therefore, that kind of gives the startups very difficult and large responsibility that, okay, so if these technologies fundamentally shapes what it means to be a human, then what kind of behaviors these technologies should then enable.
That brings up an important, I guess, hot topic around bias with these different training models. Like, of course, a lot of it's been trained on, like English-based content, and like there's a lot of big questions around that black box. Through a prompt, and you just get this kind of lucky dip response, but it's been trained in a specific way with certain kinds of data. And, not many people, well, it's very hard to reverse engineer that. I know there's certain ways you can do that through explainable AI, but, I think that what you're talking about how does the technology impact the way we think and do and see things? I mean, you mentioned social media, and I think social media is fundamentally changing now, where there's so much AI content being streamed at everyone, that people start to switch off. And it's an interesting space, but I think bias is a big and is a big topic around the way that these AI models are trained.
But actually, bias is something that I've been thinking quite a lot, that it's something that the AI probably can help a bit as well, in the sense that I often talk about the kind of the vibe, especially when it comes to kind of a human assessing different aspects of different people or different like situations. So then whenever kind of it's a human person doing that, so there's always a bias involved from that person's side. Like, for example, I've been doing a lot of hiring recently, and then kind of looking into the candidates when you're meeting them, when you're talking to them. So there's always some kind of a bias involved. And I'm kind of like sort of intrigued to see that whether in the future actually AI is able to augment that experience a bit, like you guys were saying as well, that kind of improving this whole setup so that then I can also maybe recognize my bias better, or I can kind of come up with like better sort of summaries of these candidates, for example, in that sense.
And kind of challenge your decision making.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have kind of seen that as well, that for example, I for a long had this quite universalistic assumption about how to do proper coaching and how to do proper change management, because I mean it's open questions fundamentally. So, but then one of our biggest markets is actually in Japan, where we were very lucky to find a reseller that is very in sync with our vision and our value system. And through them, we work with, for example, Panasonic and Mitsubishi and large Japanese corporations. And how coaching is done in the West it's a very different thing than how it is done in Japan, where, for example, these individualistic premises do not apply to the similar degree as they apply over here. That because in Japan, people first and foremost think of themselves as part of a group, and only after that as an individual. So, and that in a sense changed the whole notion of how we can do coaching. We couldn't look into many of the models that were based on American worldview that is very individualistic, and we instead needed to move into the systemic coaching domain that looks the organization as this web of relationships that you need to reflect upon in order to understand who are you in this context and what you need to do. Yet, on the other hand, it also is a very difficult question, like when you think about in the future, because cultures are constantly also in change themselves as well, because there are issues in the Japanese work life related to this very phenomenon of thinking yourself first and foremost as the salaryman instead of as an actual person, which then leads back to this need for autonomy, which is there, but it's not something that, is not really considered that real. And then comes the difficult ethical question of, do you enforce the already existing pattern in the culture, or do you open up space for something else as well? And I don't have a clear-cut answer to it, but at the same time, we kind of do see that just by having people reflect on how they, for example, relate to their workplace and what it means to them, it eventually brings new layers into the point of reflection. So you kind of can't clear cut these different areas that here is how change is done here and here it's done here, because these are not absolute facts, they are historical facts.
Fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely, and really difficult as well.
So AI in the future can assist us and can train us and educate, help with the change management. Do you foresee an urgent need for retraining and upskilling in the workplaces?
Absolutely. It's already clear when I just consider the people I know personally who have been using AI. Some people have not even tried how it feels and kind of hesitate to log in, test it out. And yeah, I worry for them because it's such a big opportunity to handle with very little burden some of those tasks that may take quite a lot of energy in a day. Let's say you have a tough email or 20 emails to reply to. You can just like breeze through them with AI. Like it's so much faster. It doesn't take nearly as much energy. And sometimes I have gotten stuck in a very simple response, like I want to bring up these points. I can't do it. I can't come up with a way. And then the first suggestion from ChatGPT is yes, exactly. That's what I want to say. So it's a clear booster to both output and quality, in my opinion. And I would highly encourage everyone to keep up, to open minds and test out these solutions.
Yeah, I think the change is already happening today. I think, a number of months ago, Klarna announced that they're basically laid off, or 60% of their customer support is no longer needed because they can automate it through chatbots and things like that. I think that's only going to, continue, and who knows what the world's going to be in even 2 years' time, or 5 years' time, or 20 years' time. Absolutely, we're going to have to adapt. We're going to have to, be on our feet. But I agree. It's a little bit scary to consider the future about how we might adapt to that, or how do we stay relevant or competitive in terms of staying employed, or even as a company, to not be in this constant state of disruption. I think in the short term, at least, I think a lot of companies, they're not going to be hiring as much as they used to, and it's going to start customer support, start with potentially the top of the funnel of the sales team and all that kind of thing. But the AI is just going so fast, so dramatically fast. And for myself, who I feel like I'm fairly aware, we're an AI startup, fairly aware of what's happening, but I don't feel like I'm completely at the forefront of what's the advancements are. And I think the vast majority of humans, in Western societies and, and elsewhere are feeling the same way, as this kind of sense of unease. And unfortunately, in my opinion, maybe a little bit pessimistic, but that's perhaps going to exacerbate inequalities. And, those people who understand how to leverage it and to use it productively are going to, those people who don't adapt are going to struggle more and more and more, unfortunately. And it's a little bit of a worry, I think, this question of employment.
That thing would really be the concern for me as well, that how in the future do we keep everyone along, in the sense that we have older people, we have people with kind of a lesser interest or lesser skills on AI in general, and kind of how do we ensure that they are all kind of along in the society in the long run as well. And also from the point of view that the more AI is being used, that we need to be able to also kind of educate the younger generations to also understand that what is actually real and what is generated by the AI. Because of course, for us, for example, our generation, we've already kind of, or we've lived in a world where there were no AI agents anywhere. So then it's still possible for us, at least up to some points, to assess kind of what's actually generated by AI or what's real. But then for example, my children, that I'm looking at them, so they can't really tell the difference. Is it true or is it not true?
And what will they value? The truth or the kind of pretty pictures, in a sense?
Yeah, and I think the question of valuing is very much at the core of this. So, at this point, I'm kind of disagreeing with the premise of the story, not because I wouldn't like that to happen, but because I think if we are to on a scale to leverage these capabilities of creativity, empathy, and co-creation, I think we need to have AI as part of that equation. Of course, I'm incentivized in saying this, but also I wouldn't be doing this unless I wouldn't believe that it is absolutely mandatory. Because, I mean, if we look into history, I think technology is and always has been our means of adaptation where it's in a sense this tricky box that we solve issues with technology and then those solutions create new problems, and that's just how it seems to go. But then I think the difference here than the previous industrial revolutions is that these issues are becoming way more complex, multidimensional, and also abstract as well. And where, in a sense, I do think that many organizations are having too superficial view of the situation when it comes to these questions of upskilling, for example, where very often they think about the how would I say, skills that are relevant now instead of these, you could call them meta skills of learning, of trying out new things, of finding new perspectives, of relating, because the more faster the change becomes, the older the faster any kind of solutions we come up with become old. So that therefore means that we need to have this general capability, not only of adaptation, because adaptation is reacting to your environment and finding an equilibrium within your environment, but also creativity, meaning trying out new things and then seeing which of them fits the environment the best.
There's one more thing I'd like to add regarding the potentially growing inequalities between people who are able to use AI and those who are not. We're still like 2 years in the revolution, so this is going to take place in the coming decades. And the usability of these large language models is not nearly there yet, in my opinion. And there's this like whole new wave of kind of AI applications that are built on top of those language models, which we haven't even seen happen yet. We're building stuff in that wave, all of us. So the usability of these solutions will be something like extraordinary. It's going to be so easy for people to access eventually that it's just hard to not get to know these models and how to use them. That's what I believe. But I'm an optimist in this question.
Me too. Yet at the same time, I do realize that there is quite drastic asymmetry between what European companies can do and what, for example, American, but also Chinese companies can do. And that's where I do see that on an EU level, instead of just thinking about the questions related to regulation, there also should be quite a large citizen-level discussion on what kind of futures we want to create and what kind of values we want to cultivate in the future. Because, how would I say, right now it's mainly the US companies who kind of make serious investments in this space, but at least if we look into the history, usually the technologies over time become more accessible and cheaper. But it's very difficult for me to see that unless we have some kind of to give a comparison, are you familiar with the mission economy concept? Okay, it's from my favorite economist, Mariana Mazzucato, who researched this very interesting phenomenon, like after the Second World War, where she asked the question, how in the heck did United States and Soviet Union get into the moon so fast after the war was ended? And what was interesting with her research was that basically both United States and Soviet Union made it a mission for their whole countries that we need to get into space ASAP, and everything was aligned with it. The incentive structures for organizations, the education, etc., 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 and the output was tremendous leap in space technology. So then, okay, we have been in the moon already. So then the question, I think, is based on different value systems of different cultures. What are the core missions into the futures that we want to enforce? And that is a discussion that we should have started yesterday, I believe.
That's a good point. And what do you think, will the tech giants continue to grow in influence, or will they maybe face pressure to be broken into smaller entities? Like, for example, is currently being speculated in the US with Google. And would that somehow impact the European companies or provide possibilities?
They are so far ahead in developing these AI models, and they can invest billions, and they have the computational power to build these models. So they already have such big moats that it's very tough to compete outside the US in building these models. So yeah, I think regulation can slow down that advance that they have, and eventually there's going to be, like in every industry, the life cycle matures at some point, and then there will be capabilities to develop elsewhere as well. But for the coming decades, I would say it's pretty clear who the winners are and whose influence will only grow.
I guess for me, the question is, a lot of on people's mind is, how big is OpenAI going to be in relation to everyone else? I guess I mean, they're going from stride to stride, in terms of making progress for this. But how Google, choose to, or how they're able to compete is going to be an interesting competition over the coming years. But I'm not sure if I think in terms of Google specifically, I don't think the government wants to destroy that company in terms of breaking it up. But I think there are very large questions around these. I don't know the concrete details too well, but like there's talk about breaking it up into say YouTube and different companies, because they are getting extremely powerful. But I'm pretty sure that they'll still maintain that competitive edge and continue to grow.
So is the game lost for European companies already? Or?
The question is that why would such breaking down happen or not happen? With the current state of things, I don't see why it would happen, because growth certainly does accumulate, and especially because the moat is already so huge. I don't see any reason why it would break down. The only scenario, or the most plausible scenario where I see the breaking down happening would be related to geopolitical reasons, where that if this trend of deglobalization would keep on going, where governments are both building incentive structures that favor the AIs they want to favor and constrain the AIs that they want to constrain, that's the most clear scenario that I can see, where in a sense there would become more balance over time. That's something that we can already see China doing, for example, because they do understand that these are powerful, extremely powerful technologies with serious political implications. But how would I say? Besides those more obvious cases, like the question between United States and EU, I think that's for us to see, because right now everyone is a little bit on the edge to seeing that what's going to happen behind the Atlantic Sea. What can we expect happening? So I guess we will follow along for some time, but I also do see that eventually, I hope we also start asking between each other in EU that, okay, so if we fully cannot rely on the leadership of United States into decades ahead, what are we going to do? And after we would have such a discussion seriously, that might change the game a little bit, but that's already 4 or 5 steps of speculation ahead. So,
And I think there's still a lot of opportunities in the AI space, and especially in this like third wave, which is the application application layer of AI. So, well, we work in HR tech. You work probably also in HR tech somehow.
Change management, talent management,
yeah.
E-learning and
Yeah.
e-tech. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of related fields, but there are so many other verticals for SaaS that already exist. And in every vertical, there's going to be a bunch of new companies who competes over the like AI agent solutions for that vertical. So it's going to be in CRMs. It's going to be in marketing data. You already see these like sales agents who can prospect and send emails, reach out in LinkedIn, use your profile, do all sorts of things in the gray areas. So that competition is still very much unfinished, and that's the opportunity that most European startups have now, I would say.
And I think even still to mention like kind of the more traditional industries, because of course kind of when it comes to software and all this, it's a kind of a certain sized industry. But then if we talk about, say, forestry or maritime industry or all these sort of more traditional ones where Europe traditionally has been quite strong in producing these equipment. So right now, at least what I've been seeing is that there's quite a lot of kind of need and demand on the traditional side as well to actually start developing those kind of heavy machinery, for example, into a direction that they are more ecological, they are more efficient and so forth. And that will involve AI a lot in the future, which it doesn't have that much now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do agree. And there are massive opportunities for disruption right now. And especially for startups, because in many industries, they do suffer from serious innovator dilemmas where they have built bloated cost structures and industries around those bloated cost structures where they are heavily disincentivized in, for example, implementing AI into their operations, because that would take out a lot of people who are bringing in the money right now. So how would I say? So that's why, even though there is this moat between the AI gods like OpenAI, etc., but then between the status quo businesses and the AI applications, the competition is way more even, and there is lots of cool new businesses will emerge in the near future. Many of them are open. How would I say? Operating a little bit under the radar right now, but but at the same time, we are still in the very early steps, as you said. Like, it's just been 2 years. So even though what we can do is here, what the market realizes that we can do and should do hasn't yet completely caught up.
So lots of interesting new applications coming up in the future.
Yeah, I would say so. And that's actually, how would I say, the really interesting question related to the startup community and related to this question of valuing, because I don't think many people are not looking into AI purely because of rational reasons. I think many of them are not looking into it because they are attached to the past and they have lots of fear related to the change that is happening. So that's why I do see that there is this need of how would I say, really listening to what people actually want, and not just listening but also asking, and then building on top of that. And that is not something that one company can do for everyone, because that takes tuning into an existing ecology and existing language and existing market that has a lot of nuance to it, and building the stories and the products that they are really looking for without them just knowing it yet.
And you all being busy startup founders, would you like to have an AI twin of yourselves just helping you tackle the daily tasks?
For me, definitely, but something that maybe I was trying to make a point before, I would really struggle to trust it, to make that leap to go, okay, to trust it completely. And I think that's where the bottleneck for me in the adoption of a lot of these technologies is humans at the end of the day need to adapt to learn to use these and figure out, well, what areas and how can I use this tool or that tool and integrate it into my life. Because I feel like, an AI digital twin of myself, it's going to take me a long time to get to the point where I even trust it with emails, and they always want to check everything that it does for a good amount of time. I'm not sure if that's a great answer, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's also quite hard for me to imagine what a AI twin would do and look like and how it would behave. So pretty much similar thinking on my part. It would be really hard to trust an AI model to completely take over some tasks. I would need to check everything. So who knows, maybe we'll get there someday, but not nearly there today.
Yeah, I think that depends quite a lot on how accurate of a digital twin it is, because if it is truly accurate, it would probably try to delegate its tasks to me. So if it replicates my flaws, then that might happen. So
yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want a twin.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I'm not looking to work with people like me anyway. I want people to compensate for what I am. So
Exactly.
I guess the same applies for digital twins as well. Could I make a digital twin of my assistant? That is a different question. But of myself, I would really need to seriously consider and also ask that how much can you tweak it and how can you ensure that there are good enough guardrails in place, because it's, how would I say, well, at the same time they are absolutely remarkable, but at the same time they do lack still so much contextual information and nuance, and they still make really awkward and stupid mistakes. Right now, where I like to use AI is mainly for two types of tasks, where one is simplifying the already existing processes and making the output more efficient, and then which is, for example, where ChatGPT is absolutely fantastic, and some other tools as well. And then after that, the more perspectival tasks. So instead of it doing the thinking for me, having it to help me think better through the situation. That's what I do. I think this kind of comes back to like some of the motivations behind what has been driving me with Panatron, where I have ADHD, so I kind of have these issues related to executive functioning, like meaning that planning ahead, thinking ahead, etc., etc., etc. So it has actually been funny that I realized at some point that the further I developed the AI that we are having, the more it seems that I am creating capabilities that I compensate for the lacks that I have. But at the same time, I do see that those lacks are still something that are, even though they might be more pronounced in neurotypical people, but they are still something that is very prevalent for the whole workforce, as everyone is kind of stuck with things being too much, things being too trivial, and things being too unclear. I think we have this overload of bullshit going on in the business world, and where everyone kind of knows it, but we don't have the means of really articulating it. And that's where I hope AI could be an aid, or that's where we should design it in my opinion, because AI enforced bullshit seems to be quite a dangerous idea in my opinion.
But what I thought was quite interesting, I don't know if you saw that over the weekend now, that I mean, of course, we all use ChatGPT in different ways and to kind of like process data and all that. But now over the weekend, there was this thing going on in social media that you should ask ChatGPT, because of the memory function now, that what does it know about you that you might not know? Which I thought was amazing, because I use ChatGPT on a daily basis a lot as well. And kind of asking that from ChatGPT actually brought back a response that I thought was very, very insightful, in the sense that kind of it's processing data that I've given to it, and then kind of coming up with sort of summaries of who I am as a person, or how do I work as a leader, and things that I had not considered. But it was quite intriguing. Recommend to try it if you haven't tried it yet.
Good tip.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and a really interesting, insightful discussion. And remember, we shape the future by discussing it.